Coming up on Chasing the Natty, last week you guys got a deep dive of the way too early CFF mock draft, so what's better than a 9-round draft? How about a 30-round mock draft? Today, we're going to be breaking down the first full-depth mock draft of the season, talking about our teams, and then talking deeply about those later rounds we haven't seen yet. All of that and more coming right after this.
Looking to throw. Caught. Tony off and running. He doesn't lose foot races. Touchdown Miami.
Jackson going to the end zone. What a night, Bo Sparks. Make it 4.
Shakes through a couple of tacklers. Still on his feet. Hawkins to the end zone. Unbelievable.
This is Chasing the Natty, a college fantasy football podcast. All right, welcome in everyone. This is Jared Palmgren, host of the Chasing the Natty podcast. Hope you guys are having a wonderful ride to your work on this Monday morning. We are the College Fantasy Football Podcast on the Campus to Canton Podcast Network. You can find us on all of your podcast feeds and on YouTube every Monday morning during the season at 6 a.m. sharp. If you want to support the great work we do here, head on over to campuscanton.com and subscribe there with any of our phenomenal tiers. We got content ranging on all sorts of college football games, whether that is CFF, Devy, C2C, College DFS, Underdog Best Balls. If you play it, then we've likely got content, whether that is tools, rankings, pretty much everything you need to succeed in your leagues. In fact, right now, if you want to support the show directly, make sure when you sign up for one of those yearly membership tiers, you use that promo code NATTY, N-A-T-T-Y, to get 10% off your yearly membership. And again, that is promo code NATTY, N-A-T-T-Y. If you can't do that, totally fine. Just show us some love by leaving a like, a comment, a subscribe on the YouTube side of things. If you're on the podcast side of things, just leave us a 5-star review and make sure you are following the show. Not only does that show us support, but also shows the entire game of college fantasy football a ton of support. If you have any further questions or want to get in touch for whatever reason, you can find me in the show on Twitter. I am at CFF_Jared. The show is at Chasing the Natty, and the handsome fellow across from me, and to whom I am very grateful for keeping the show alive last week while I was on I guess it was a vacation in a way, but it is Mr. Chris Battistel at FFChrisB on Twitter. Chris, how you doing today, man?
A little heartbroken after Canada's loss in the gold medal game to you guys, Jared. So congratulations on that, the Olympic gold medals. But I got to say, man, you are an absolute pro. You made that read go off like smooth like butter. I think I had 3 takes trying to get that out of my mouth last week. So kudos to you, man.
I mean, it only comes with practice after doing this. Again, this is my 6th season doing this. So I would hope I'm pretty good at that read by now, considering it's literally the exact same read every single week. I can almost recite it by heart at this point. But yeah, Chris, I have to tell you 3 things with regards to what happened this morning. And 1, it's called a mile, not a kilometer. 2, Tim Hortons is kind of overrated. And number 3, U.S. is the hockey capital of the world. Sorry to break it to you, man. It just is what it is. No, but for real, what a fantastic game that was. Like I'm not a huge hockey guy, but like, yeah, you know, when I saw when the Gals won the gold and everything, that was like great. And then I saw we had the chance to do it in both divisions. I was like, okay, well, I gotta tune in for this. Yeah, so that was a great way to wake up this morning.
Yeah, for you maybe. For me, not so much. But it was good, man. Overtime, gold medal game, 3-on-3 just adds an extra layer of electricity to the game itself. They're so wide open, as we saw with the Hughes goal to end it. But enough hockey, man. Let's just talk about football, please.
Yeah, I'm sure you're ready to move on from the hockey discussion. No, yeah. I agree. Let's get into college football. People don't come here for skatey skates and sticky sticks. They come here for knowledge on college football.
That's it.
We got a really fun show here today. We're going to discuss really, almost want to call it the way too early degenerate draft, because we did the way too early draft, which is 9 rounds, and I keep it 9 rounds because I want to make sure I get like as many experts in as well and everything. But then afterwards, I'm like, let's see if I can get 12 people to go 30 rounds with me in February. And boy, did I find them real quick, man! We got such a great community, and I do want to shout out the people who drafted with us in this draft: Tommy Harvey, Mike Bainbridge, Matt Hicks, Josh Chevalier, Kevin Coleman, Mitch Hart, Justin Heisey, Cambodian Milk, Willie B, and Jay Mill. All those guys are great, and they did a great job in this mock. And again, going 30 deep this early in the season really is such a test of your rankings, man. Like, I don't know about you, Chris, but man, even by the end of 30 rounds, I was like, oh man.
I was adding some of the guys in this 30 rounds to my rankings. It was like, oh, that's a good one. I got to add him in there. And then, you get a tight end that you never heard of, the San Jose State wide receiver that, Josh Chevalier picked up, the guy who pointed out Danny Scudero early last season. So, you're going to attach yourself to that wide receiver. You're adding him to your rankings. But man, it was a ton of fun.
Yeah. I'm surprised Josh is let a secret like that go in a non-paid elite like draft here. Like I would have held on to that one until you're at least in some best balls.
Later. Maybe he's just taking us off the scent of somebody else and he's just throwing a name out there.
I wouldn't doubt it because again, there's not really many options at San Jose State. So like I wouldn't be surprised if he was trying to just throw everybody off with that one, just to see how many people are just waiting to see who he picks.
Exactly.
But again, this draft was a ton of fun. Before we dive into it, I think we'll go ahead and get the ads out of the way. That way it doesn't interrupt us later. So let's go ahead and do that. Austin from Campus Again's got a couple things to say, so we'll be right back.
Hey guys, Austin here to talk for a brief moment about Home Field Apparel, the best place to snag clothing for all my favorite schools and teams. Whether it's tees, sweatshirts, hats, joggers, or pretty much anything in between, Home Field Apparel has retro designs with a modern twist to satisfy fans from Ohio State to Drexel to Colorado School of the Mines. Plus, it's some of the comfiest clothing that I own. Use our promo code CAMPUS2CANTON, that's campus, the number 2 Canton at checkout, for 15% off your first purchase. What's up, guys? Austin here again to let you know about our partnership with Fast Draft, a best ball and DFS platform that hosts a ton of different contests. With the season over and season-long CFF best ball behind us, I know I'm looking for new contests that can scratch my drafting itch, and I think I have found just the thing. Fast Draft has a rookie-only contest called Origins. Each draft has 8 teams in it and is 6 rounds long. And as I mentioned earlier, you only draft incoming 2026 rookies. I know I plan on max entering this thing, and I think it's going to be a ton of fun. So head on over to Fast Draft, and when you sign up, use code C2C, that's C2C, for a deposit match up to $50. Happy drafting.
All right, and we're back. So, Chris, 30 rounds this draft was. Obviously a very different experience for you because you were in the way too early draft. I did not draft in that one. I guess I want to get your thoughts, man. Like, what was the major difference kind of going into this draft versus the way too early one? Obviously, you got to prepare more. But there's no roster restrictions in this one.
Yeah.
Right. So did that kind of change your approach at all here at all? Or what just give me whatever you're thinking.
Yeah, the draft slot, the way too early, I drafted 3rd. In this draft, I drafted out of the 12th slot. So that kind of had a little bit of a dictation on how I was going to approach this draft. Of course, it was running back heavy, just like the way too early mock draft. Without the roster constrictions and the extra rounds, we were able to get a little bit more freewheeling with how we wanted to construct the rosters. But I saw some of the same patterns that we saw in the way too early, especially with the running backs. The first 3 rounds, 21 of the 36 picks went to the running back position. And that could just be an early indicator drafting in February that people are chasing, that known workload, that known fantasy point production from a position over how much unknown there is at the wide receiver position. Of course, we had, some of the top name wide receivers go off in the first, second rounds, but they were few and far between compared to the running backs. So running backs again are going to dominate early, man. No change there.
Yeah, I fully agree, and that is the strategy I went with in this draft, as we'll discuss a little bit here in a second once we kind of dive into our respective teams. The thing I kind of want to ask you, Chris, is obviously we're not going to do like a super deep dive on these first 9-10 rounds because quite frankly, if people want a deep dive on what the first 10 rounds of a draft kind of look like this year, they can go listen to you and Mox's show last week where y'all dove into the 9 rounds of the way too early draft. But obviously there's some differences, right, between the way too early mock and then this one. Are there any guys that went in the first 10 rounds here that didn't go in the way too early mock last week that you think stick, and you think that they are going to end up staying in those top nine rounds? And, it was just a oversight in the way too early mock. Is there anybody here that fell out of the 9 rounds that you think sticks and, they're not going to be taken as high as they were in the way too early draft? Kind of a loaded question. But just want to get your thoughts on that, because I know there's going to be people who are going to be asking about, the first 10 rounds, and we're not going to dive too deeply into this. But I will say, Chris, while you're thinking about that, that is a good time for me to remind everybody, if you do want to see this full draft board, please go over to my Twitter at CFF_Jared. You will find the full draft board there on a pretty recent tweet. I'll even retweet it tomorrow morning, so that it's it is my most recent tweet, so you guys can find it pretty easy. So, Chris, anybody stand out to you as somebody you don't recall going in the way too early draft that you think is going to stay in these top 10 rounds?
Just looking at it briefly without, looking at having the way too early in front of my face. Right now, there's probably a good amount of wide receivers that were taken in this draft that, could see a lot of movement come, or at least stick in the first 10 rounds that weren't picked in the way too early. I'm trying to see, because I know that Eric Frotan made a good case for Gunnar Stockton, but it doesn't look like he was picked in the first 10 rounds in this draft.
Oh,
like
no,
he
I got him real late.
10. Yeah, you did, right? So it's hard to say right off the bat. Let me see if I can pull up the way too early. Avery Johnson was picked. A lot of quarterbacks picked.
I got the way too early pulled up here, so if you want me to look up guys
you got
real
it?
quick.
Sure. Let's see. Actually, I don't have anyone that I think sticks that wasn't picked in the way too early mock draft in the 10. Do you got a guy?
I don't. I was just throwing it out there. I think Jaheim White is one that's kind of sticking out to me right now, because I don't recall that he went in the way too early draft. Yeah, he did not go in that draft, and he went in the 4th round for this mock. And just based on early best balls, it seems like that's going to be a relatively split opinion, where I think there's either you love him and you're going to take him in that 4th round, or you probably have him too low to where you're not going to take him in the first 10 rounds. So I think that's one that kind of sticks out to me. I'm trying to see if there's anybody else here.
Maybe
Cooper Barcade of Miami, now that it's official that he's going to Miami, I think will stay in the higher end, although I think he went late in the way too early draft. Jordan Shipp out of North Carolina, I think, will be another one that kind of sticks.
Yeah, that was one of the ones. Evan Dickens, possibly out of Boston College, considering the usage that he had.
I've in the early best balls I've been a part of, he's kind of been all over the place. So I think he's going to be one that is like, you're not going to really get a great ADP on him until probably a couple months in, especially once we get some news out of camp, right? Trying to think if there's anybody else that really sticks out to me as, or I guess these are really early risers that we're trying to identify here, but it's hard to do when you only have a couple of drafts really to look at.
Yeah, I mean, it looks almost similar compared to the players that were picked in the way too early. Outside of, some players that maybe will drop, like JKS getting picked in the 3rd round as the quarterback.
That's
4.
Yeah, I don't think that one sticks. I think that
no,
just based on best balls, I think he'll end up going a little bit later in most drafts. I think that was a talent pick, which is, not totally unfair, right? But at the same time, like, okay,
QB4 is rich.
here's the other question I wanted to ask you. And this is really the big thing we're going to be talking about today is like how we have a pretty good idea of what things look like in the beginning, but this draft was the first chance we got to look at how things develop as you get deeper and deeper. We got to really test the depth of all the positions here. So,
Oh yeah.
Chris, what were your early takeaways at each position? Which ones did you feel good about the depth? Which ones do you feel like you were okay with the upside shots later? Were there any positions you felt like kind of fell off a cliff at some point? Like what were you kind of feeling with each position as you're going through?
Tight ends the position at least early to identify as the one that falls off the cliff after the first, 8 or so tight ends. You kind of it kind of gets a little dicey with some of the picks, but you're not picking a lot of the tight ends in the first 15 rounds. You're not reaching for a lot of these players. Running back depth is there, and I kind of wanted to test that with this draft, picking out of the 12th spot, knowing that a lot of running backs were going to go before where I was picking. I wanted to see how I could kind of stretch out the position and see if I could find some of that running back depth late. I think I was able to accomplish that with some of the backs that I had on my roster that I was able to fill in late. Wide receiver, it's dicey early if you don't tie yourself to at least 1 or 2 elite options in the first 5 to 6 rounds. You could be reaching quite a bit in the later rounds, but it's a position that if you hit it on these later, back end of your draft, you're able to hit on a couple of these late wide receivers like you might be able to do with your roster, Jared, with some of the guys that you were able to pick up. Those guys could potentially be league winners if they climb in as you're drafting them as wide receiver 6 or 7, 8 on your team. Those guys could potentially be end up to be wide receiver 3. So
it could be wide receiver zeros as well.
Yeah, exactly. It could go the other way. Absolutely. So for me, and then quarterbacks deep. It's shown to be deep. This draft here says that it's deep. It's not a position that you really have to reach on early.
Yeah, I think I would concur with most of what you said. I think I disagree a little bit with the running back depth, and we'll kind of get into that with my draft here, where I did hit running back early, and I kind of felt vindicated on that because I was like, I look at the running backs I got later in the draft, and man, I feel the value difference versus like wide receivers. Yes, I feel a decline as the draft goes on. You're going to feel that. But between like the wide receiver I got in like the 16th round versus the wide receivers I was grabbing in the, 20, last one I picked was the 27th round. I picked a wide receiver. I didn't feel a huge difference between those guys. I felt it way more at running back. Like wide receiver, you kind of accept early on that like once you get past those early anchor guys, you're taking shots everywhere.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you kind of accept that as you go along. Running back, I think there is a drop off at one point. I haven't fully figured out exactly where that is. I think it's going to take a couple of drafts while people kind of figure out like, who are some of those hidden values early on that'll rise up and stuff like that. But eventually we're going to get to a point where I think a lot of people are going to feel real bad about some of the running back options later on. And then I agree with you with quarterback. Quarterback is ridiculously deep this year. Like I said it on the Defending the Natty podcast, where every year we say, oh yeah, quarterback's deep. No, this year it is really, really deep. The fact that I was getting a guy that was averaging 30 points per game at some point last year as my QB6 in this draft tells me that like you're going to feel pretty good about quarterback. Most drafts are coming out of it. So,
oh yeah.
Let's dive into it now. Let's go straight into our team. So we're gonna talk about each of our teams here real quick. We'll start with my team, not because I'm better, but because I was first in the draft. I was at the 10th spot. You were at the 12th spot. So we were both in the latter half here. I went with this strategy, the strategy I expect to use in most drafts this year, the strategy I expect most people will end up using, and that is hitting your running backs early, waiting on quarterback and wide receiver. 4 of my first 6 picks were running backs, so, grabbing running backs early and then kind of seeing how things play out. At quarterback, I did draft Brad Jackson in the second round because I kind of wanted in this kind of low stakes league because he went second round in the way too early draft. And I was like, okay, I kind of want to see how do I feel if I grab Brad Jackson there on that 1-2 turn because I don't really love a lot of the options on that 1-2 turn anyway. So I'm like, okay, let's just test this out with Brad Jackson, see how I like it. Because there is a huge ADP split between him and the rest of the QBs. I'm like, do I feel like this is worth it? And I'll be real, I think my verdict is that I would have rather have grabbed another running back like Bishop or Isaac Brown or Jaden Baugh, Shepard, Taylor, like all those guys that came off after my pick. I think I'd rather have those guys and then just go attack quarterback later on. I love Brad Jackson. I think he's the clear QB1 this year. I just don't know that the drop off between running back and when I would get my next quarterback if I didn't take Brad Jackson. Oh, let me say that one more time. The drop off at running back between I probably would have grabbed my first quarterback like 4 rounds later. The drop off between second round running backs versus fifth round running backs is a lot steeper than Brad Jackson versus the rest of the quarterbacks, right? That's kind of my point. But in addition to grabbing Brad Jackson earlier, just kind of testing that out. Otherwise, I just kind of grabbed value at QB where I saw it afterwards because again, you don't have to rush it at all. Liam Zarka in the 7th, crazy to me. I grabbed him. I'm like, I'll grab him there. After that, I didn't touch quarterback again until round 13 because there's still just so many good options on the board that I was just like, yeah, I'll wait another round, see who I get. Like normally in years past, like around round 7, I start hitting QB hard. Like it'll be like round 7 and then like 3 out of my next 5 picks are quarterbacks. This year, I don't feel that as much because I think you can get really good quarterbacks. Again, just look at this QB room I got. Brad Jackson, Liam Zarka, Cale Hillams, Quinn Hennikel, Gunnar Stockton, Mason Heinschel. Those are all starting quarterbacks. Those are guys I know are starting, and I know that they're going to be in positions to get me good points throughout the year. Like, it is crazy. Should I read off my whole team, by the way? Is that going to waste too much time? I just realized because the podcast listeners are probably sitting over here being like, "Oh my God, Jared,
what's your team?" Yeah, go ahead.
All right, here I'll do it by position. So again, quarterback I just read off again: Brad Jackson, Liam Zarka, Cale Hillams, Quinn Hennikel, and Gunnar Stockton, and Mason Heinschel. At running back, I had Antoine Raymond, Will Henderson at UTSA, Jordan Davison out of Oregon, Joe Jackson, running back out of Kansas State, Kirby Voorhees, the running back out of Washington State, Greg Burrell, the running back out of Texas State, Gideon Davidson, running back out of Clemson, Rayshawn Luke, the running back out of Fresno State, Fame Ijeboy, the running back out of Purdue, and then Sire Gaines, the running back out of Boise State. At wide receiver, I drafted 11 of them in this draft, which I think I'm going to do in most drafts just to have that one more extra shot at wide receiver and sacrifice a tight end. Jordan Dwyer, wide receiver out of TCU. Anthony Evans, wide receiver at Mississippi State. Griffin Wilde. Griffin Wilde, the wide receiver out of Northwestern. Anthony Eager, wide receiver out of South Alabama. Ashton Bethel Roman, the wide receiver out of Texas A&M. Joseph Williams, wide receiver out of Colorado. Barcel Williams, wide receiver out of Akron. Jisiah Rockwell, wide receiver out of Western Kentucky. Javon Robinson, the wide receiver out of Utah State. Troy O'Mary, wide receiver out of New Mexico. And then Chase Soule, wide receiver out of Penn State. And my 3 tight ends were Terrence Carter, Benjamin Brahmer, and Luke Reynolds out of Virginia Tech. So that's my team. I gave you kind of my general thoughts, my general strategy. I'll talk about wide receiver here in a little bit in terms of the things that I liked. But Chris, what is something that you like about my team?
I liked you were able to draft Luke Reynolds in the 30th round, going over to Virginia Tech from Penn State. But overall, like you mentioned, your QB room strength and your running back room is what's gonna put you in a position to win. If we were to put this mock draft into a league, this is what gives you the potential to win. You got Brad Jackson. You picked him early. You were able to sit on the position from there while everyone chased a quarterback. And then you just robbed value the rest of the way. Like you mentioned, Liam Zarka in the 7th is just tremendous value. Cale Hillams in the 13th, great value. And then you push the position back to the end of your draft and you were able to pick up 3 other quarterbacks that can give you those spike weeks where maybe Brad Jackson's on bye or Sarka has a down week. These other quarterbacks are going to be able to lift your roster up and put you in a position to be the highest scorer each and every week. And then running back, Antoine Rabin and Will Henderson as your running back 1 and running back 2. The room is built to survive this season. If one guy goes down, it's another man up type of room. You got Joe Jackson, Jordan Davidson. I don't really need to name all the running backs because you just did. But I'm just impressed with the running back room and the quarterback room that you were able to put together in this 30-round draft. Especially Sire Gaines in the 27th is a potential steal at Boise State. We've seen what he's been able to do with the time that he's been given the ball. So there's potential there where you've soaked up a lot of great value between your running backs and your quarterbacks, Jared. Well done, man.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you. Your flattery will get you many, many places, and it's definitely not.
Well, wait till we talk about the wide receiver room, though.
All right. That it's funny because actually I like my wide receiver room, and what I was able to do with this is gonna be fun back and forth. But one thing I want to point out with my quarterbacks, I just realized, and you kind of touched on it here. I never at any point during this draft bunched up my quarterback picks. It's actually insane. Pick a quarterback,
spread out, yeah.
wait 4 picks, picked another quarterback. Wait 4 or 5 picks, picked another quarterback. Wait 4 picks, picked another quarterback. It's spread out through the whole draft. I never double dipped that quarterback within 3 rounds at any point during this draft. And to me, that really shows you can get value at quarterback almost anywhere in the draft. Like, if you're just waiting on value and just waiting to see what falls and you're paying attention to who's available, you can find some really, really good options throughout the draft. Now, let me talk about my wide receiver room. Because as much as I feel that wide receiver isn't very deep right now, I think everybody kind of feels that way. I felt pretty good in this draft about the guys that I'm willing to take a shot on. Right, I grabbed Dwyer as my kind of anchor wide receiver in the 4th round. I discussed it on Defending the Natty, where I have about a group of 9 wide receivers that I feel really, really good about this year. If I can walk out of the first 3 or 4 rounds with at least one of those guys to kind of anchor my wide receiver room, I feel pretty good about it. And I grabbed Dwyer here, which, granted, he's probably the most shaky of the anchor wide receivers. I think he's got insane upside, but, we haven't seen him be the number 1 at TCU yet. But every wide receiver I grabbed from there on, I feel like is a solid upside shot, right? I love the trio I got in the 9th through 11th round here. Anthony Evans, wide receiver, Mississippi State. Griffin Wilde, wide receiver, Northwestern. Anthony Eager, wide receiver, South Alabama. Those are all guys who are in systems that basically crap out 100-yard or 100-target wide receivers year in and year out. And I'm happy to take shots on those guys. Then taking shots on guys like Troy Amiri as my wide receiver 10. He's going to a system there with Jason Eck where they love feeding their top outside wide receiver. And here's the thing, Troy Amiri, the joke is that Troy Amiri is always hurt, and he probably will be hurt again this year, hence why he's going so late in this draft. But when he plays, he's really good. Like, his advanced metrics are really solid. So there's a chance that if he stays healthy at New Mexico, man, he could be a potential league winner there because it's a great system, and he could be playing well below his competition level. And he's just there because, no team was willing to take a shot on him after him being injured for like 3 years in a row, it feels like. So I feel pretty good about my wide receiver room, or as good as you can feel about a wide receiver room, I think, at this point. Obviously, we can go the other option, which is what you did with your team, Chris. We'll get to that in a second, but I want to hear your thoughts on my wide receiver room.
I think there's just a little bit of a fragility risk with the depth of your wide receiver room, where your running back and quarterbacks could win you the league. The lack of, depth with the wide receivers could lose it for you. Can Ashton Bethel Roman build on what he was able to do last season? You have Josiah Rockwell, who we talked about in the transfer portal episode for FCS. Is the transfer jump going to be enough for him? Is he going to be able to play at a level of him transferring up? Joseph Williams, showed a lot of consistency concerns at Colorado last year. You know,
Mhm.
you mentioned Troy O'Mary. The injury concerns are always going to be at the top of my mind when picking a player like that at New Mexico. The system is great. And again, the potential is there for Troy O'Mary. It's just, is he going to be able to hit that potential? And then we all know how I feel about Chase Sowell. I'm not very high on him going into this year, even though he's following his ex-coach, or he's following his ex-coach from Iowa State to Penn State, and his quarterback. I'll give you Marcel Williams at Akron, and I'll give you Javon Robinson. But, you know, we're never going to predict injuries, but you could be 1 to 2 injuries away from your top guys going down, and you're going to be banking on some of these other guys living up to the upside that you drafted. And I just don't know if I see it within that group of Ashton Bethel Roman, Rockwell, Joseph Williams, O'Mary, and Chase Sowell. So it can get a little dicey for you if you're counting on that group of wide receivers to lift you up if you were to lose, or if one of your top wide receivers struggles.
I mean, yes, I fully agree, but I also don't know really how you avoid that this year
Yeah,
without
it's near impossible.
especially this
Yeah.
early on, right? Where
Yeah,
very so quickly everything feels like either a projection or a dart throw in a lot of these wide receiver
absolutely.
rooms,
Yeah,
right? Especially at least before we get some spring news and we figure out, is Troy O'Mary even going to be starting for New Mexico this year? I don't know,
yeah,
right? But
yeah.
that's also why I took him in the last 6 rounds. And Chase Sewell,
Yeah,
honestly,
it's a gamble.
I'm
Absolutely.
kind of shocked that Chase Sewell. I know people are down on him after last year and everything, but he kind of not turned it on, but like he was getting better as the year went on.
He did.
And
Yeah,
still for
that's
him
true.
to be here available in the last 4 rounds of this draft is kind of crazy to me. I'll talk about the thing I didn't like about my draft, and that is, I feel very validated getting RBs early, and quite frankly, I don't think I got enough RBs early, because if you look at my last 4 running backs I got post round 15 here, I I really feel like you can feel the difference in value of the RBs compared to what you're getting at other positions, right? Look at these 4: Gideon Davison, Rayshawn Luke, um, Bame Ijiboy, and Sire Gaines.
Nailed it. Yeah.
They're either locked in with someone else in that backfield, or they're a massive projection on my part in the case of Ijiboy, right? And you, at that point, unless you just see somebody that has fallen through the cracks or nobody else is talking about, and there are some good picks there, we can talk about them later. That's all you're getting in the second half of the draft. You're taking guys that feel like handcuffs to somebody else that might be better than them. And I think going forward, I wouldn't be surprised if by the time I get to pick 15, which is about the halfway point in most of these best balls, if I'm not rostering 7 running backs out of those first 15 picks. You have a similar feel, or are you okay with some of these later round dart throws?
I'm okay with some of the later round dart throws, especially that you took there, Gideon Davidson and Sire Gaines. But I'm kind of on the same page. I'm usually a heavy running back drafter as well, especially early, and then taking some shots a bit late. Just like, you know, your roster construction here, maybe outside of Brad Jackson, but I don't hate the Brad Jackson pick there because he kind of anchors your quarterback room, and
Mm-hmm.
he gives your team a weekly ceiling with what he's able to do on the field. This is kind of what I usually walk out of my best ball drafts, or teams. This is how they end up looking. So I think you nailed it. You hit well on the top running backs, and you stole some depth a little bit early. But yeah, I'm kind of on the same side with you there.
Alrighty, Chris. Your turn. Let's put you in the firing line. Let's take a
Oh
look at your
no.
team. You were picking on the turn, which is definitely a very interesting spot in these drafts. It's always fun. Would you like to name off your team? Do you want to do the same thing I did, where you go position by position?
Sure, sure. Yeah, we'll start at the quarterback. My QB1, Devin Dampier out of Utah. QB2, Jaden Maivia out of USC. Then I went with Caden Creel, Jacksonville State. Roman Gagliano out of Middle Tennessee. Matt Vezza out of Ohio. I know that one stung Jared just a little bit.
Oh
Then I
yeah.
went Taron Dickens out of North Carolina. My running back room, Austin Dendy from Bowling Green, Carson Hansen from Penn State, Jordan Gant from Akron, Braden Bennett from Eastern Michigan. I went with Jakail Middlebrook from Virginia. DeJuan Williams from Maryland, Trey Wisner from Florida State, Chase Garnett from the University of South Florida, Caden Knighton from Baylor, and CJ Miller from Toledo. And then my wide receiver room was Wyatt Young from Oklahoma State, Mari Thomas from Houston, Chris Don from Texas State, Jace Brown, LSU, Shelton Sampson Jr. from Louisiana, Caden Lee from Missouri, Corey Milliner from North Texas, Tommy Marr from Colorado State, and Isaiah Hunter from Nebraska, Booby Feaster from USC, and Musa Berry, who is currently in the transfer portal. And then my tight end room is Dylan Wade, UCF, Joshua Long from Eastern Michigan, and Carter Moses out of Kansas, Jared.
All right, Chris, talk to us about what your general strategy is. We kind of hinted at it. You very much went wide receiver heavy to start this draft. Was that the basis of your strategy? Was that more of necessity? Like by the time I got to your pick, like was that something you came into the draft thinking you were going to do? What's going on there?
Yeah, drafting at 12 let me swim against the current while everyone else chased RB early. I loaded up at wide receiver and attacked running back in the middle rounds where I felt the depth kind of lived. It gave me a little bit of flexibility to maybe not pick, my running back 6 and go after my possible wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, or wide receiver 4 based on where I have them ranked. And then I was able to fill in the running back room as I moved on through the draft. A quarterback, it was always my goal to pick at least one top end quarterback in the first 10 picks to be able to anchor my quarterback room and then just take what the draft board was going to give me. I believe I got a steal with some of the guys I was able to pick, like Katie Creel.
Sure.
And Roman Gagliano. I don't think I'm going to get that value on those guys moving forward. And
you'd be surprised. Creel's making it to the 13th round in the best balls I'm in, dude.
Still?
Oh yeah,
really?
Again, I don't know what we're doing as a community. Is 1,000-yard rusher at quarterback making to the 13th round? I don't know what's going on.
But we'll take it, right?
Jay? Oh yeah, I'll take it.
We'll take that value every day. But in February, he'll be there on the 13th. As we move into April, get into May, and move into heavy draft season, he's got to be, a quarterback that's going in the first 10 rounds. Just like you said, what he's able to do on the ground with his legs and the fantasy points he's able to produce, the production's undeniable. And then some of the late running backs I was able to pick up, like DeJuan Williams, I got in the 16th. I think in the draft we're in now, he's went in the 8th.
Yeah, he's not going to go there anymore. Not with Clint Trickett headed over there.
Yeah, and then tight end, of course, never going to chase a tight end. I will try to follow what the board is going to give me, but I think I ended up with some solid options, at least in Dylan Wade and Joshua Long, and then I had a projected top 20 tight end in Carter Moses over at Kansas. So I was really just trying to take what the board was going to give me at the 112. I knew I was going to be going in wide receiver heavy. I kind of wanted to see how I was able to construct a roster going wide receiver heavy and kind of pushing off the running backs and seeing what running backs I was able to scoop up late, just to get an overall view of what a team like that would look like. I think I did okay. I don't know if I got a league winning team, but I think I got a league contending team.
I find it interesting, one, that you did do this RB light approach. I think in a mock draft like this is the time to kind of test out that approach and see, like, all right, what can I do
in the game?
like what can I do when I'm looking at this? And I like you said, you don't have skin in the game, and like you said, you're on the turn as well. That's already kind of a weird spot. Yeah. Like, what can I do when I'm going against what everybody else is doing? I'm not entirely sure your team convinces me that this is the way to go, but
oh yeah, that's fair.
But I will say, your wide receiver room's pretty great. You got 4 guys in there that are top 24 wide receivers for me this year. So I think if you go with this approach and you try to differentiate yourself that way, I think that's the kind of thing you got to go. You got to load up on wide receivers that follow you there. I also find it interesting that you load up on 4 wide receivers in your first 6 picks, and then 4 of your last 6 picks are also wide receiver. You kind of went wide receiver light in the middle of the draft, which I kind of find super interesting. So maybe you can speak on that in a little bit. Actually, I'll throw it over to you. Like, can you speak on that? Was that on purpose, or was that another thing of, like, that's how the board fell for you after you hit that wide receiver early?
Yeah, once I went Jace Brown, and I was like, okay, I'm seeing the trend on the draft board. I'm seeing that now the other teams, at least around me, were starting to pivot towards picking the wide receiver position. So I knew that I was going to get some running back depth kind of drop to me there. So I was going to scoop up and kind of build a position that way with the running backs that were on the board. I think the one pick I probably regret is the Jaden Maivia pick there. I took Maivia and immediately knew that I kind of played it safe or didn't play it smart by picking him in that spot. The board still had value at other positions, and I felt like I should have pushed quarterback back a little bit more like I normally do.
Hmm.
Anthony Evans was still on the board. Sean Wilson was still on the board. Komolafe was still on the board. So I could have bolstered my other positions a bit more before picking my second QB, just knowing and seeing that the position kind of pushed back the quarterback position. I was able, and you were able as well, to scoop up some of those valuable rushing quarterbacks that gave you a secure floor. So I think that was the one pick that I would do different in those first 10 to 15 rounds.
I want to talk about your running backs here real quick,
Yep.
because where you got a strong wide receiver room, you sacrifice at the running back position. And of your running backs, only two at the time we were drafting were in my personal top 30 running backs. So to
Ooh.
me, that says weak running back room. Now, granted that
Yep. Yep.
Daquan Williams running back pick aged like a fine wine. He's now in my top 30 running backs because of
There
the
you go. So I
system.
got three.
So you got three now, but even still, like, I like walking out with a lot of guys that I feel really, really good about. So
Sure.
knowing
Yeah.
that I'm having to risk running back is certainly there. Now, I found it interesting that you also targeted heavily the MAC, right? Because you got Austin Dendy, you got Jordan Gant, you got Braden Bennett, and you got CJ Miller. So I'll ask you, Chris, kind of what your thoughts are on about that. Is it smart to invest so much into one conference? Because on one hand, my brain says no, because what if that conference just isn't as high scoring as you want it to be?
Yeah.
But
Yep.
also, I'd be a hypocrite because last year, oftentimes, my strategy at quarterback, especially in like underdog best balls, was just load up on Big 12 quarterbacks because I knew
Yeah.
that that's a conference that could just lead to a lot of scoring any given week. So, you want to speak on that real quick?
It wasn't me with the process of, hey, I want to attack the conference. I was just trying to look at, with the running backs that were left on the board, which ones have the highest potential to be their team's running back ones, and which ones have the highest potential to lead their running back rooms. And where I was picking these guys, that's just what was left for me on the board at that time. Jordan Gant, Braden Bennett out of Akron and Eastern Michigan can both be the running back bell cows on their team. So that's when, because I pushed the position so far back, that was my strategy to try to just attack potential running back ones for their teams. Other than that, I wasn't chasing conference play or anything else.
Gotcha. All right. I'm gonna throw out some picks that I really like before I attack.
Right.
Two picks that I don't like. One, I really want to dive into because I see this trend going on in the community, and I want to figure this out real quick. But
Ooh.
picks I like. Obviously, Daquan Williams pick, Angel like a fine wine. That's good. Love the Dalen
Yeah.
Wade pick. I've got him at tight end 2. You got him as tight end 9 in this draft, so I think that was a really solid value. You
Yep.
made me mad when you pick Caden Lee and Matt Veza, so I have to give you props for those. We already talked about Caden Creel, 13th round. That's crazy. And then that CJ Miller pick in round 24, we talked about him in the FCS transfer episode,
Yeah.
him going to Toledo following his coach. I dumbly did not have him in my rankings at the time, just forgot to add him and completely forgot about him in this draft. And when you made that pick, I was like, dang, that I should be, he should have been in my rankings, and that should have been a pick that I made much sooner than that. So props to you on that. Picks I didn't
Appreciate
like.
Ooh.
I don't know if this is not really you. I think it's just more of like, I think I'm just at the point where I don't really like Wyatt Young as a first rounder or a upper half second
Gotcha.
rounder.
Yeah,
I
that's
kind
fair.
I kind of talked about it on DTN a little bit, where I think there's a path to where he splits a lot more with some of those other talented wide receivers they brought in. He'll still be the one most likely, and that's why I'm still still okay with taking him in like the second, third round. But as a first-round wide receiver, I think there's a lot that can kind of go wrong, even compared to, grabbing like Bo Sparks or who else, or even Amari Thomas, your pick right there. Like, I think I'd rather go after Amari Thomas there. And then here's the other pick that I just don't get where this is coming from. We got to talk about Sheldon Sampson. I just really am not sure I get the Sheldon Sampson hype right now. He had 3 good weeks last year in a row, and that's all he had. Like, in recent best balls, he's going even higher than what you have in this pick.
Yeah,
I think you got him in the 12th. You got him in the 12th round here. I've seen him go as high as the 6th round. So I'm going to ask you a series of questions here, Chris.
Okay.
How many 15-plus fantasy points games did he have last year in half-point PPR formats?
I'm going to say...
He played in 10 games, by the way.
I'm going to say 3.
He had 3, so you got that correct.
Oh,
but so 3 weeks you were happy with him last year.
Yeah.
What did he finish in fantasy points per game? Again, I'm not doing total points because he only played 10 games. What did he finish in fantasy points per game?
Oh, wide receiver 47.
How about wide receiver 86?
Oh, yeah, that's no good.
He played in 10 games last year. If you extrapolate his target numbers that he got last year to 12 games, how many targets was he on pace for?
79.
83. Pretty close, but that's not target numbers you want.
No, it's not. That's fair point.
What percentage of his targets did Sampson actually catch last year?
Oh, I feel like it's sub 50. It's got to be sub 50.
It is sub 50. It's 46.4%. Career-wise, he is 41.6%. I'll ask you this, Chris. With Michael Desamore, I butcher that name every time. But with him as OC or head coach since 2021, how many wide receivers have had 80-plus targets in the regular season with him running the offense?
You're killing me, Jared.
Not including Sheldon Sampson last year.
I was going to say 1. Okay. 0?
It is 1. I forget what his name is. Michael something a couple years ago had 83 targets in 12 games. So he's had 1. It's 1. And it's still not a great volume.
No.
In the 9 games Lunch Winfield started last year, how many pass attempts per game did he throw?
It's not a lot. I know that much. I know Lunch is a, run first quarterback. Per game, 15.7.
Okay, he's not that bad, but 23.4. Still not a high volume passing attack whatsoever we got going on here at Louisiana. Yeah. Right, so you're relying on low volume passing, a lot of it needing to go to Sheldon Sampson. Would you like to hear what I have Sheldon Sampson projected at?
I'll wave the white flag here to say no. Yeah, let's hear it.
Wide receiver 68. That's where I've got him in my rankings. Yeah. I think people are so enamored with the 3 good games he had last year. Granted, I think he got hurt again, which kind of threw him off the last couple of weeks. But even still, like, at no point was he really a dominant guy that I'm now projecting to finish much higher.
Okay.
That's and again, this is not an attack on you or you making this pick. I've seen him go really high in some of these early best balls, and I'm like, I don't get it. I just didn't get it. So I'm like, I'm building a prosecution against Sheldon Sampson here.
It's working. It's working.
All right. Do you have any more thoughts out of your team before we move on?
No, just I think I did all right considering the strategy was to take wide receivers early, walked out with some decent quarterbacks, took some shots late, which I'm never afraid to do. But yeah, I think I did all right.
I think you did a good job as well. Again, I'm very prosecutorial when I do like draft breakdowns and stuff like that. But for the most part, like you do well, and most people I talk to, like I think you guys do well when you draft. I just am very nitpicky sometimes.
No, I like you. You got to talk me off the ledge. I like it. Some of these guys.
All right. If you're listening on the Campus to Canton Podcast Network, we will be right back with you guys. We got a couple of great sponsors that want a few things to say, but if you're listening elsewhere, we'll be back here in just 1 second. All right, we are back. So what we're going to do now, we've broken down our best ball teams, enough of our teams and everything, Chris. The people want to hear about these later rounds, right? You and Mox
Yep.
did a great job breaking down the way too early draft last week. And as we kind of discussed at the beginning of the show, most of that's the same in this draft. There's a couple of players that hop in and out, right? But a lot of the takeaways you guys had last week play out this week as well. So we're going to skip over those first 10 rounds. If you guys want to see those first 10 rounds, go check out my Twitter. The first 10 rounds are there as well. But we're going to go into round 11 through 15 here. If you're watching on YouTube, all 5 rounds of 11 through 15 are on the board right now. And Chris, we're just going to go back and forth and just kind of point out some picks that seem interesting to us. So I'll start off here. Let me get my little fancy dancy highlighter cube out here.
Yeah, let's go.
And I am going to highlight Mr. Malcolm Simmons up here at the 1103. And less to do with Malcolm Simmons himself, but more of me just kind of wanting to get your take on how are you handling these Texas Tech wide receivers? Is there one in particular you're willing to take a shot on? Because my money's personally on Kenny Johnson.
Yeah.
But where are you kind of going with it? Because we also got Coy Eakin. We got obviously Malcolm Simmons who got picked here. How are you going?
I'm in the same boat. I'm going Kenny Johnson as the potential wide receiver 1 for Texas Tech, and then I'll draft the rest of the room based on where they're going to fall value wise in most drafts. And then I don't know what the volume is going to be for Brendan Sorsby to be able to produce 2 or 3 potential valuable wide receivers for fantasy production. So right now for me, it's Terrence Carter and Kenny Johnson. And then I will spread out the rest of the wide receiver room. Take Malcolm Simmons if he's there at a good value. Take Coy Eakin if he's there at a good value. I will not reach for the other players in this pass catching offense. That's where I'm with it, Jared. Where are you at with this room?
I think the upside play is with Kenny Johnson for the most part. Or I don't want to say it. Because here's the thing. Malcolm Simmons is a speedster. He is the one that can take the top off of the defense in those Big 12 offenses or defenses. So I really do think he's going to have some really big weeks. And I think he's a great best ball play if you're looking for somebody that could pop off, 3 weeks out of the season. Johnson, I think, being that other outside wide receiver, might be the more consistent higher ceiling play. Meanwhile, Coy Eakin, easily the biggest floor play amongst them. If you're just looking for a guy that's going to get volume, who's going to catch a higher percentage of balls that come his way, and you kind of take those PPR points, you kind of go that direction. That's why I kind of find this wide receiver room so interesting, because really, which guy you are wanting to take shots on in drafts kind of almost directly correlates with what you value in a wide receiver in drafts. Does that kind of make sense? That's why I was kind of curious to see where you were at. So
makes sense.
Your turn, Chris. What's a wide receiver, or not wide receiver? What's just a pick that kind of stands out to you? Want to talk about a little bit? The only rule is we cannot talk about our picks again because we broke down our drafts.
Yeah. Let's go with Colton Joseph out of Wisconsin. I think he's picked the 14.
There he is.
10?
14-10.
That's back the other way. I think he's picked kind of high with the quarterbacks that were picked around him. You have Haas Haney, Colorado State, picked the round after. Jackson Arnold picked after. Mike Aliato picked after. Even Lenora Sellers went full 2 rounds after Colton Joseph, who transferred to Wisconsin. So I think that's a bit of a reach with Colton Joseph in that system. I don't have Colton Joseph ranked that high. And some of the quarterbacks that went after him, I have much more valuable than what Colton Joseph's going to be at Wisconsin. Even Brock Lowry at 16-2 is a tremendous value over what Colton Joseph can be at Wisconsin. What's your take on Joseph over there as a Badger?
All right, so I think I counted this correctly. He is QB 34 in this draft.
In this draft?
Yeah, I was trying. I don't know if it came through or not, but I was like whisper counting over here, being like, where did he go in this draft? Because I definitely don't have him there either. I've
No.
got him at, I just saw him. There you go. QB 66. Right.
No, so you got him almost half. Like he's taken half 33, you said here?
Yes. Yeah. 30, yeah. 30,
Yeah.
or
So
34 he was taking. I got him at QB 66. But here's the thing. A lot of that has to do with the fact that I have a huge confidence discount on him. He is moving up in competition. I don't love, Wisconsin's offense right now. I think this is a very weird fit for the most part. But if I take away that confidence discount and just go purely on his projection, technically has the ceiling for a top 20 quarterback. Right?
okay.
Because
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
because of his skill set, he is still a dual threat quarterback. So I
Yeah.
don't blame people for taking that shot, but it is also in the conference that is overall the lowest scoring, lowest plays
Mhm.
run, especially once you get into some of those colder months. There is a huge jump up in competition for him, so that's a bit concerning as well. I agree with you. I would not take him this early. I mean, just looking at the guys in this range that come after him immediately, just in that next round, Micah Alahado, I'll take him over Colton Joseph all day long.
Yeah.
Cedric Bailey out of NC State, I'll take him there. Jackson Arnold, Haas Haney. Like, if I'm taking upside shots at quarterback, I'll take those guys, all of them, over Colton Joseph. I think Colton Joseph has a really, really low floor if that Wisconsin offense really does just completely bottom out this year.
Yeah,
Uh,
like you said, I think
okay.
just to build on that, I think he has the ability to produce points with his legs. I just don't know if he has the ability to produce points with his arm at Wisconsin. I don't know if he's going to be able to marry the two together and be the quarterback that he was. So it's a little bit of a hesitation pick for me there.
Yeah, here's also the thing. He was hyper efficient when he was at Old Dominion.
Yeah.
8.3 yards per pass attempt, 7.4 yards per carry on the ground. I don't think there's any way he replicates those numbers at Wisconsin. So like that's
No.
going to be something that brings him down a little bit. In this Jeff Grimes offense, the quarterback has averaged 7.7 yards per attempt and 4.6 yards per carry the last couple of years.
Yeah. So not great.
Not great. One guy I want to point out here is a running back, and that is the guy we're actually right next to Colton Joseph, and that is D.R.A. Hill, the running back out of Oregon. And this is coming from a guy who picked Jordan Davison in this draft. Chris, how do we kind of feel about D.R.A. Hill as a really solid zag play to Jordan Davison? Jordan Davison going much earlier in this draft. D.R.A. Hill went off 14th round in this. I haven't checked the other best balls we're in or anything, but I'm not entirely sure that ones that have gotten to this point in those, if anybody's taken D.R.A. Hill, I'd have to go check. But even so, you're talking about at least an 8-round difference between these two. And yes, Jordan Davison outcarried D.R.A. Hill by a pretty good margin last year, even playing one less game. He outcarried him by about 40 carries last year. But on a per carry basis, man, like D.R.A. Hill was phenomenal last year. 8.9 yards per attempt. Yards after contact per attempt for D.R.A. Hill was 6.5, like just completely elite. A 61.2% breakaway percentage. He was just phenomenal. And, it is only 74 carries, but that's a whole lot better than, us looking at a guy that had maybe 15, 20 carries and having these efficiency numbers. Like, he was able to sustain this over a decent number of carries last year. Does that happen again this year? I don't know. But is there a possibility that D.R.A. Hill just becomes too much to ignore? And, Davison might still end up being like the goal line back, but D.R.A. Hill might end up being just a straight up better back at Oregon this year if he's given the same chances as Davison. What are your kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, Chris Moxley and I touched on this a little bit last week on the Oregon running back room and how they usually approach the season and play multiple running backs throughout the course of their game. So it could be a situation where it's a committee approach at Oregon and getting D.R. Hill. Josh Chevalier picked him as, I believe, his running back 5 in this situation in the 14th. I don't hate the pick there, because if anything was to happen to Davison, Deer Hill instantly walks into that role as the running back one. And if it is a split carry situation between him and Davison, the value that you got on Hill over where Davison was picked was great if they're going into almost a 50-50 workload. I have Davison as the guy for the Ducks, at least right now, as we walk into early draft season. But it's definitely a situation where Deer Hill could either eat into a lot of Davidson's workload, or like you said, with what he was able to do last year, could potentially take over as the lead back for the Ducks. But it's going to be interesting to see what the lead back is going to carry for Oregon this season. So it's an interesting pick. It's an interesting running back room. It's an interesting wide receiver room. I think the only thing that we got for certain out of the Ducks is the quarterback and the tight end right now.
I would definitely agree. Again, it just screams this year's Katron Allen.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like that.
I like that comp right there.
I think that's the vibe I'm kind of getting there. And like at first I was kind of dismissive when I saw the pick, but then I really looked back and saw like how great Hill was last year, and I'm like, yeah, this actually is a really decent upside shot play here. Where, like you said, we don't even need Davison to be bad. Like if he goes down with injury, like Hill getting 15 carries a game could be astronomically great. You don't need him to get 20 carries a game. So, what's another pick that you're kind of interested in this 5-round range here?
I'm interested in Duke Watson. Picked, was that 12-7? UCF running back. The running back room is potentially wide open for them. Coming over from Louisville is potential to be the running back one for UCF. So it's going to be interesting to see what he's going to be able to do as a fantasy running back. Who drafted him? Who was that drafted? Mitch Hart drafted him as his running back 7, which it could turn out to be a tremendous value for him if he's able to put up a good amount of points out of the backfield. He is a running back that, can give you some frustrating games, and then he'll end up breaking off a 60-yard run, an 80-yard run for a touchdown. So there's potential there for some big spike weeks, and picking a running back, like Duke Watson as your running back 7, that's kind of what you're looking for. You're looking for him to prop up your team with some of those bigger weeks, and he can give that to you. So yeah, like Duke Watson is a player that I don't mind targeting a little later than maybe the 12th round, but it's an interesting pick nonetheless. Jared, do you have a take on what the potential of Duke Watson is going to be at UCF?
So I can give you just my projected ranking for him right now, just so people know that I don't hate him, but I don't really love him either. I got him as RB 64 in my rankings here, and there's a discount on him because he is transferring, right? But again, projection wise, I've still got him potentially going over 1,000 total yards there at UCF, especially with both Nixon and Montgomery clearing out of there. Yeah, I just need the real Duke Watson to stand up, please. Because look at the difference between these 2 years. Freshman year, 8.7 yards per carry, 7 touchdowns on 69 attempts. You're nearly 10% touchdown rate there. Yards after contact per attempt was 4.83, which is elite. And his breakaway percentage was 63.3%, which is just beyond elite. Then comes his sophomore season. 3.2 yards per carry, Chris.
Yeah, not elite.
1 touchdown on 49 attempts, so a 2% touchdown rate. Yards after contact per attempt goes from 4.83 down to 2.65. Breakaway percentage goes from an elite 63.3% in his freshman year down to an abysmal 9.5% in his second year. Talk about a tale of 2 years. What the hell are we going to get from him at UCF? The real big question. I doubt Scott Frost goes out and grabs him if he isn't going to give him a shot to be the main guy. I don't know what happened with Duke Watson last year. I'm trusting that Duke Watson will be the number 1 guy here. I think that Scott Frost is willing to give his RB1 a ton of work. Again, Scott Frost's RB1s, when they play 12 games, have averaged 205 carries the last couple of years that he's been around, like between last year and then Anthony Grant's his final year at Nebraska. Like, there's potential here for Watson a lot, but boy, which one are we gonna get, man? I have zero clue. So
the real Duke Watson, please stand up, like
exactly.
you said.
All right, I got one more guy I want to talk about here in this range, and that is Andrew Marsh here at 13.5 is this? Yeah, 13.5. I questioned this pick at first. I was like, Michigan wide receivers. I don't like that. Never have liked that. Nobody likes Michigan wide receivers. It's a really good pick in the 13th round. I never thought I'd say that about a Michigan wide receiver. But he projects as wide receiver 34 in my rankings right now. And that's with me putting a pretty big confidence discount on him. Because kind of sneakily, Jason Beck's been phenomenal for wide receiver ones the last couple of years. His wide receivers have averaged 100 targets over 12 games the last 2 years, between Luke Weissong and then last year Ryan Davis. Right? Marsh, you put Marsh in that situation, which I think he will be the wide receiver 1 for Michigan this year. He was great as a true freshman last year. He and Bryce Underwood have a really good connection. Speaking of that really good connection, Marsh reeled in 75% of his targets last year. And he averaged 14.5 yards per catch. I think that calms down a little bit this year. But that path is there for him to be a top 24 wide receiver just on volume alone. Like, you give me a guy going into a system, pretty decently talented guy getting 100 targets out of this system, I think that's all you can really hope for, really, once you get outside of those top 9 guys. You just start targeting systems where 100 targets is a realistic possibility. And getting a guy like Marsh this late, that's pretty dang solid. You got any thoughts on that?
No, I'm with you. I like the pick. He was able to put up some good numbers last year with Michigan. He's tied to Bryce Underwood again. The system only gets better. He had games where he was able to put up some really good numbers. He played well against his conference. I'm with you there. I like the pick where he went in this draft.
All righty. Anybody else you want to touch on real quick, or are we ready to move on to the next couple rounds?
We can move on. All
right, let us move on then. So we're now in round 16 through 20. I'll let you go first here, Chris. Who is somebody you want to talk about?
Oh, I mean, let's lead it off with Lenore Sellers, quarterback, South Carolina.
Great
I think
call.
You're able to draft him at a phenomenal discount this early in the draft season. I don't think the bargain will be there with Lenore Sellers as we move into the later months and get closer to the start of the season. But where he went, I don't have the QB count right in front of me, but it's got to be QB.
I'm not counting that far.
Yeah, exactly, and that just goes to show how far he went.
What number QB did Josh get him at? Like, what number QB is this for Josh? Because that's who picked him.
5.
Holy crap!
QB 4. Arch Manning, Sam Leavitt, John Mateer, Lenore Sellers. So
God, what
tremendous room,
dude! Again, just goes to show how great the quarterback position is this year. That can be your 4 quarterbacks.
Yeah, and then he went with Reese Poffenbarger and Mason McKenzie as his last pick. So great depth at the position. Lenore Sellers is going into the year right now at a great discount. So that's definitely one of the picks, at least in this chunk of rounds here, that really, really stood out to me, Jared.
No, I fully agree with you. Lenore Sellers, I have him at QB 24 in my rankings. He gets such an upgrade at offensive coordinator with Kendall Briles coming in. Holy crap, that was so huge for him. And Kendall Briles, we know, can do some real magic with dual threat quarterbacks like Lenore Sellers. All you have to do, one, Kendall Briles was able to do something with Josh Hoover the last couple of years, and he doesn't move around too much. But go back to Max, no, not Max Duggan. Oh my God, who was it before? Where was Kendall Briles before that? I'm blanking. Anyway, Arkansas. He was at Arkansas before that with KJ Jefferson. KJ Jefferson was a monster absolute monster under Kendall Briles, and it also shows that Kendall Briles' system can work in the SEC already. So I'm not worried about that. Like, if he can do that with KJ Jefferson, who basically died in his 6th year of college. He's just out of juice. He could do that with a guy much more talented in Lenoris Sellers. I think Lenoris is a great value right now. Again, we'll see if he rises or not, but yeah, I love that call out.
I did the count, Jared. He got him at QB 42.
That's crazy. Oh my god,
tremendous value.
I'm gonna keep this in the South Carolina. I was gonna go a different direction, but I'll keep this in the South Carolina discussion because I do want to talk about Nick Harbor. Nick Harbor went. Where are you? 2009 here. Also by Josh. And again, we're just going to keep talking about this Kendall Briles thing because Kendall Briles has been producing some studs last couple of years at wide receiver. Like, you're looking at Jack Beck. Obviously, Eric McAllister was a top 10 wide receiver for CFF. Are we looking at a pretty big-time post-hype sleeper in Harbor? Because, yeah, he doesn't have the tight end eligibility anymore, but, man, if he's Briles' wide receiver 1, he's not going to need the tight end eligibility. He's going to be worth it regardless. I've got him at wide receiver 50 in my rankings right now, which feels too low. I probably need to bump him up a little bit. But so much of that has to do with the fact that I have a huge confidence discount on him because I felt like I had to rein him in. If I just give him, not even get rid of all of the confidence discounts, if I just move him up a tier in my confidence discount, he goes from, where are you? There you are, wide receiver 50. So if I put him up in the next tier of my confidence discount rating, this man goes from wide receiver 50 to wide receiver 18.
Ooh.
Like, there's one that just shows you how even so many of the wide receivers I have from wide receiver 20 to 50 are. There's only about a 10% difference in their projections. But even still, like, if I get rid of all of the confidence discount, there's a world where he's a top 5 wide receiver. Because he's been so hyper efficient the last couple of years. Yes, he hasn't done exactly what he wanted to, but on a per catch basis over the last 2 years, 17.8 yards per catch. The guy's a big play waiting to happen. Now, what happens when you give him the volume to go along with that?
Money.
I think it's again, if you're looking at wide receiver and you're looking for upside, like true upside plays, I think Harper's a guy you got to take a shot on this year. Again, things are coming together. All right, you got anybody else?
The value's there for him. The value's going to be there for Harbor as we can see it. So I love that call. Great pick. 2 South Carolina potential studs draft out of value. I do got one, Jared, but I'm going to go. Well, I lost him. Where was he? DeJuan Williams. No, that's my guy. Alex Perry, wide receiver at Illinois, who's potentially walking in to that Hank Beatty role. There is potential that is he not?
Brother, he's an outside wide receiver. Beatty was a slot receiver.
I got that completely wrong.
That's what I was going to be confused by because I'm not saying you're wrong in that maybe there is some shifting that kind of goes on here, right? But like Colin Dixon and Hudson Clement returned from last year, right? They're both outside guys.
That's it.
I don't know. Maybe there is some shifting that kind of goes on there, but I'm personally not drafting Alex Perry at all. This is such a stock down transfer for me. Even when I projected him out of my wide receiver rankings, he just consistently hangs out at the bottom and just does not move up ever.
Okay. That's fair. Egg on my face for thinking that he was taking over the Beatty role. But let's go with Rodney Nelson, running back, Miami, Ohio.
That was one of the ones I wanted to bring up. Shout out Cambodian. No. I'll let you go. I just want to say shout out Cambodian Milk. It's not often that a guy gets taken in a draft like this, and I look at him, I go look him up, and say to myself, "Holy crap! How did I miss this? What a great pick!"
Yeah, a lot of potential there for him. Miami, Ohio, as the starting running back for them, and there is going to be, value to be had at these late round picks with the running back, and that's one of them. He got him at 16-4. Great value right beside Chris Johnson Jr. and Zylan Perry at Cincinnati. Where he was able to pick the running back is great. The running backs that are around him that he was able to pick between was great, and there's a lot of potential for him. I don't have too much information on the player.
I got you.
In general. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so again, like I said, Cambodian Milk put some egg on my face with this pick because it legitimately made me feel like, Chris, we failed our audience by not including this man in our FCS to FBS transfers episode. Because
Okay.
this
Yeah.
man last year, 271 attempts, 1,648 yards, and 16 touchdowns for Monmouth. Dude was a beast at the FCS level, and I just completely missed that he moved up to the FBS level and is going to such a great spot here at Miami of Ohio. We have seen the last couple of years. Granted, again, injuries kind of derailed them quite a bit, so hopefully that doesn't happen again this year. But man, Miami of Ohio, they do like to ride one running back, and that room has cleared out between Tracy's gone,
Yeah.
Jordan Brunson's gone, and so like it's wide open. I doubt they go get a guy like Nelson who is used to getting 270 carries per year and not just hand the ball off to him over and over again. This is such a great value pick here. I doubt he stays going this late for very long.
Yeah.
Another one I want to highlight here. It's really two guys because they're both in the same room, but Chris Johnson got picked. He's right next to him. Chris Johnson, former running back out of SMU, headed over to Clemson. We also have my pick, Gideon Davison, running back at Clemson here. I want to ask you, Chris, what are you doing with this Clemson backfield? Because historically, it's been a really solid spot for CFF between ETN, Maffa, Adam Randall last year was a top 30 running back for CFF. Like, how are you dealing with this backfield right now?
I got Gideon Davidson as the running back one going into spring, and I'm going to leave him there until I hear different. Chris Johnson, great talent coming over from SMU to Clemson, but it's going to be hard for me to put anyone above Davidson at this early stage of the draft season. So I think you kind of got a great value there with where you drafted Davidson compared to where Chris Johnson Jr. went. But yeah, that's how I'm treating this room right now with Davidson as the lead dog.
Yeah, I definitely think Chris Johnson was brought to be in like a more of a change of pace back more than like the guy. Again, maybe that changes based on reports throughout the spring and everything. I do need Gideon Davison to improve on what he did last year. 4.3 yards per carry ain't gonna cut it. Like that will not do. As of right now, that projects him out to about 731 rushing yards. I need him to be better. But as of now, I agree with you. I got Gideon Davis as the RB1 there. That puts him at RB45 for me. So definitely much lower than recent Clemson running backs have been for me in years past. But still think I think he's a good pick. I picked him there in the 19th round. Anybody else you want to touch on? I have one more thing I want to touch on in this range, but I want to make sure you get an opportunity.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Chauncey Cobb, wide receiver out of Arkansas State, taken there at 1806. Where are you? There he is. Have you really given any thought about who replaces Corey Rucker at Arkansas State?
I have not yet.
It is one of those things where Corey Rucker could have just been a special talent, right? And they're just going to keep feeding him over and over again. He's a better wide receiver than Arkansas State's used to getting through there. And it could be that nobody's there. But also we got Chauncey Cobb, who got 92 targets last year in 13 games. Yep. We also got Hunter Summers, who got 76 targets in 13 games. And if you play the system, you want to go after Summers because he's that other outside wide receiver. Meanwhile, Chauncey's been in the slot. However, based on what I can see here, Cobb is better in almost every other metric. Because, if you look at the targets last year, Cobb had more targets. Total yards, Cobb had more total yards. Yards after catch per reception, Cobb wins that as well. Yards per route run, Cobb wins that as well. Like, Summers just doesn't seem like he's a very good wide receiver, right? So if you're playing just on talent, maybe you go after Cobb. If you want to play system, maybe you go after Summers. How are you, just based on the information I gave you there, Chris, how are you kind of feeling about this?
I don't have a great feeling about what the room is going to be, but just based off what you've just given me, I probably, give me Cobb over Summers, but if the value's there for Summers, I'm gonna take him as well. So
Yeah.
I have to do a little bit more diving into what the situation's gonna be at Arkansas State. But I don't hate the pick in the 18th round, man.
Yeah, because again, Corey Rucker averaged 115 targets in 12 games the last 2 years. So it's
Yeah,
one of those
which is
things where you're sitting there being like, I don't know, if one of those guys gets it, that again, you're looking for upside at wide receiver later on. Target some systems that have shown to feed one guy. Even if you're
yeah,
not entirely sure that these guys live up to the talent of the guys who came before, what else are you going to count on later in a draft? So let's move on.
fair.
Let's move on to the next 5 rounds, rounds 21 through 25. I'll go first on this one, Chris, since I let you go first on the last one. Let's discuss a guy going off here in the 25th round. If I could grab my square, we got to talk about DJ Crowther, running back out of South Florida. Yes, we're going to have this discussion, Chris. Talk about Rodney Nelson. I feel like we whiffed on that when it came to FCS to transfers, and now we got another one here with DJ Crowther coming up from Dartmouth to South Florida. I don't feel as bad about missing this one as I do Nelson, but I do think this is another FCS to G5 transfer people need to keep an eye on it. Last year, Crowther at Dartmouth, 191 carries, 929 yards, and 10 touchdowns. For the Fighting Beer Kegs over there. I know that's not their actual mascot, but they have Keggy, so like, what else am I going to call them? South Florida is in need of a top running back for Brian Hartline's system. Like, when Hartline called plays for Ohio State, they were actually much closer to having a bell cow back. Their top RB, when Hartline called plays, averaged 175 carries during the regular season. Nothing mind-blowing, but easily enough to get you to some CFF relevance, right? This South Florida running back room completely cleared out. Davenport, Franklin, Isaac, Norton, they're all gone. No, Chris, I am not relying on Mr. Chase. I only had 8 carries last year, Garnett. I think Crowther's your RB1 at South Florida, and I think that he is another guy that is absolutely worth taking a shot on here in the 25th round, at least until we get some spring camp news that say, hey, by the way, Chase Garnett's our RB1, right?
That's fair.
I'm going to go with the guy that's at least produced somewhere else before I go with...
Sure.
No, I'll give you this, Chris. Chase Garnett, in those 8 carries, looked good. He had like 10 yards per carry. But your thoughts on this?
Yeah, and we've touched on this briefly about who's going to be the leader in the room, and you believe it's DJ Crowther. I have just always been a Chase Garnett guy since I started breaking down the class last year, going into draft season for my C2C teams. I like what he was able to do with the limited touches that he did get at South Florida, and it was very, very limited. I was kind of hoping that he'd see a little bit more usage as the season went on. He did not, but that USF wide receiver running back room, like you mentioned, was kind of loaded, and there was no real room for him to get any kind of good work, and his work didn't come until it was a little bit later in the season. Crowther was productive when he was at the FCS level. You're probably right with him being the running back one for USF, but some say I am a dreamer, but I'm not the only one when it comes to Chase Garnett, Jared.
No, I can understand that. And again, I understand being in on guys as freshmen and then wanting to... You see the opportunity here, and you're like, all right, Garnett, you got to take advantage of this. There's nobody else in this room right now except for a guy transferring in. Obviously, I feel like there had to have been a discussion, right, with Brian Hartline of like, hey, Hartline wants to keep him around because he did. Otherwise, he probably would have told Garnett, like, hey, like, I didn't recruit you. You don't got any reason to stay here. You can leave with everybody else. But Garnett is staying. So I think that does say a little bit there.
Talented dude.
What's another pick you want to talk about here?
Let's touch on looking at the board. Dalen Smothers, running back out of Texas. Hollywood Smothers. I know they also brought in Raleek Brown, and there is Derek Cooper there, the freshman running back coming in. It's going to be, the touchdown vulture of Arch Manning, the quarterback, is also going to be potential to take away fantasy points from the running back room. But taking Dalen Smothers in the 22nd round, middle of the 22nd round, around some of the other running backs that were picked around him, I think is great value if he takes the role as Texas's running back one, and being able to draft him at the 259th player in a draft is terrific. We saw what he was able to do at NC State. I kind of liked the Alabama transfer more than I liked the Texas transfer, one because Raleek Brown was
more
there. But I kind of dig the pick with where he was able to scoop him up in value. So that's definitely one of the picks in this draft, at least, that I was kind of like when he was picked in the 250 in the 22nd round at the 259th pick, where I was like, man, like I wish I was able to take, because I took Caden Knighton before Dalen Smothers was picked. And then once Dalen Smothers was picked, I was like, I should have picked him probably over Caden Knighton because of the potential of what Smothers could be in that Texas offense, man. So that's one for me that really stood out in this group of players.
There is certainly far too big of a gap between Dalen Smothers and Raleek Brown, at least early on here. Because Raleek Brown was taken in the, 8th round in this draft?
Was he?
No, I'm a liar. He was taken. Where are you? Oh, no. Yeah, 8th round. No, 6th round. I can't read. He was taken in the 6th round. Meanwhile, Dalen Smothers is here in the 22nd round. That's 16 rounds difference. That ain't it. Again, great pick by Mitch here. This is a quintessential Mitch pick because he's zagging while others are zigging. And I do have Raleek Brown ranked ahead of Dalen Smothers in my rankings,
which is fair. Yep.
But Raleek Brown's my RB 62. Dalen Smothers is my RB 88. That does not equate to a 16 round difference. I think more than anything is that Raleek Brown is being drafted way too high. I actually think this is probably the right spot for Dalen Smothers, and then probably Raleek Brown goes maybe 3 or 4 rounds ahead of him. But as long as there's that huge gap, and then I'm gonna take I'll have 100% share of Dalen Smothers over Raleek Brown in that. It's like, I think the thing that people keep forgetting is that like Raleek Brown and Dalen Smothers are shockingly similar profiles in terms of how they were used in their previous offenses. Like, they're both solid receivers. They're roughly about the same size and same build and everything like that. Like, there's not a huge difference between the two. It's not like one's clearly a scat back and one's not. Just two really good running backs Texas has brought in. That probably tells me that they're not going to feed one guy, unfortunately. So,
yep, agreed.
Let's talk another running back here. And it's less the running back, but again, more me wanting to talk about this room. But Nate Thomas, running back out of Jacksonville State, was taken here in the 24th round, very beginning of the 24th round here. Or, excuse me, end of the 24th round. And kind of similar to the Arkansas State question, I just want to ask you, Chris, like, how much thought have you kind of given to this Jacksonville State running back room? Like, we have to think there's potential for them wanting to repeat what they did with Cameron Cook, right? Like, I know Trickett's off to Maryland, but they promoted from within, so you have to think that there's at least they're wanting to continue the philosophy of what they had last year. They didn't bring anyone in from the portal, so you have to assume they're working with what they got.
Yep.
But then the 3 options here are not really inspiring, in my opinion. You got Nate Thomas here, who was drafted here by Tommy, who's a complete unknown. 0 carries in 2 years while he's been there with the Gamecocks. The other option is Christian Lando, who was the RB2 for Jacksonville State last year, but he was not great. Less than 4 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown on 52 attempts, a breakaway percentage of just 32.3%, which isn't bad, but it's definitely not something that screams to me like, oh, there's a much higher ceiling here. And then the third option is poor little Andrew Paul, who's still hanging around with Jacksonville State.
Yeah.
And he's been there. He's there. Nothing crazy. Again, 4 touchdowns in 2 years ago, 3 touchdowns this past year. averaging about 35 attempts in each of the last 2 years. So maybe he takes a big step here. He's several years removed from his injury that really derailed his career there at Georgia. So maybe a post-hype sleeper here with Andrew Paul, but like, I don't know, Chris. Like, did any of these guys really strike you as like somebody you'd want to take a shot on?
I don't know if I can pinpoint a player that I want to take a shot on, but I want to take a shot on the room. And I think that's exactly what happened with this draft pick, taking Nate Thomas. Like you mentioned, there's not much data behind the player to kind of say, yeah, he's going to walk in and be the running back one for Jacksonville State. But previous trends have told us, yeah, you kind of want to you want someone out of this running back room. We've seen what Andrew Paul has given us, or in his case hasn't given us. So I kind of like taking a shot on the potential of a Nate Thomas at Jacksonville State. So I like the pick there as well.
All right. Who is one more person that you want to point out in this range?
Let's go Jaden Craig, quarterback TCU. I know we touched on him during the FCS transfer portal episode that we did a couple weeks ago, and I'm high on Schobel being the TCU QB1. But if he's not, taking a player like Jaden Craig this late, I think gives you the potential value of having a top 30 quarterback out of TCU. We know what that offense is going to give us out of the position. Jaden Craig has the experience, albeit at the FCS level, but the experience is still there. If he's named quarterback one, Craig could be a steal, drafted in the 23rd round of this draft. I know I believe you have Jaden Craig as the quarterback one for TCU. Is that right, Jared?
Yes, that is correct, but he's probably not as highly ranked in my rankings as you think he is. Where do you think I have Jaden Craig ranked at?
I would say just because there's so much unknown built around the player and the room, I would say quarterback 75.
Holy crap, you actually nailed it. It's a quarterback 74.
Oh,
dang, that was impressive. I was again, the other thing people need to remember is that TCU is playing one less game this year for CFF because they have a week 0 game. That's something people have to remember.
Oh, yes.
The other thing is, and again, this is not a bad pick by Tommy. Again, there's a lot of great quarterbacks in this range, and again, a lot of safe floor play quarterbacks, which I do think Craig could be. My philosophy, though, is when you get to your QB 4, 5, 6, you got to shoot for upside, man. You got to shoot for, the Matt Vezas. Like you're just looking at this screen here. Yeah, Matt Veza, Anthony Calandria. You got to shoot for the Kedrick Lussers and stuff like that, or or Jared Curtis, like at Vanderbilt. Like if they use him remotely close to what they did with Pavia, he could be an absolute steal down here. Like this is where you start hitting your home run plays at quarterback, and I just don't know if Craig's really that, just because of that, just how that TCU system is. With Sonny Dykes, they bring in the offensive coordinator from UConn, who very much is used to using relative statutes at quarterbacks. I don't think you're going to get a lot of rushing out of Craig.
That's a good point.
Again, if you pick him, if you aren't super confident in the quarterbacks you took earlier, but it's just different than what my philosophy would gear towards in this range. A guy that does fit my philosophy, though, is the last guy I'll bring up in this range. That's Skylar Locklear, quarterback out of Missouri State, formerly of UTEP. Crazy good pick. 25th rounder, in my opinion. I've got Skylar Locklear as QB 28 in my rankings.
Ooh, nice.
Brother,
what
this guy,
value.
This guy was a top 10 CFF quarterback in the second half of the season last year. He was on fire to finish the year. And you might be saying, well, Jared, he's not a UTEP anymore. I don't care. He's following his offensive coordinator. He's at Missouri State. You know who he follows? His offensive coordinator. That made him a top 10 quarterback second half of last year. He'll be playing in the exact same conference. And arguably, I think he gets an upgrade to his surrounding cast. He'll have Jean-Bray Dubar at running back. And you'll also have Jamari Robinson as his top wide receiver, who, again, Kenny Odom was solid, but he was always banged up last year. I think Robinson's a better wide receiver one for him. I think Locklear could go crazy at Missouri State. So that's the kind of guy that I would be targeting in this range, guys with huge upsides like that. And again, I think people forget Locklear is a very big rusher. I think he had well over 500 yards rushing last year.
Yeah. Yeah, no, great call.
All right, let's finish it up. Let's go to the last 5 rounds here. I have Chris up past his bedtime, so I need to make sure that I don't take advantage of him. Chris, these final 5 rounds, again, obviously things get decently messy, right? Like, this is where everybody's really starting to test their rankings, starting to figure out, like, all right, what am I going to do? Certain people start picking certain players as innuendos. I don't know who I could be referring to. But
no comment.
Chris, who are you? Who do you want to call out in this range that's interesting to you?
I mean, this is the part of your draft, like you said, you kind of start taking some shots. You maybe pick the freshman potential phenom. Even though Tristan Keys and Jared Curtis and KJ Edwards were picked in the rounds just before this, but this is where you could find those guys that could be top 10 at their position, back half of the year. And I think Javonte Connor at Vanderbilt could potentially be that guy at the tight end position. And he's the guy you're going to be able to scoop up later in your drafts like he was picked here. There's that other guy, I think, at Vanderbilt who's projected to be the tight end one. His name is fleeting me right now.
My man,
Cole Spence. Yeah. But Javonte Connor just fits what Eli Stowers was last year. Same kind of archetype, wide receiving tight end. And to be able to round out your tight end room, whether he's your tight end 3 or tight end 4, with the potential in that, Vanderbilt offense, I kind of like that pick there in Javonte Connor, Jared.
I don't know, man. I'm a big sucker for Cole Spence here, man. Like, he looked pretty good last couple of years. Last year, he was
Yeah.
He was averaging 15 yards per catch last year. On his career, he's 13.4 yards per catch. Like, he's a pretty solid receiving tight end. I think they'll lean towards the veteran, and then Connor's probably the guy that they lean to after Cole Spence is gone this year, potentially, if there's even a Vanderbilt tight end to be had here, right? Because neither of these guys, I think, are. Why am I blanking on the tight end's name from last year?
Eli
Stowers. I don't think either of these guys are Eli Stowers, right? So it could very well be that we have like a mini California situation going on here. Speaking of Cal situation, I need to address this with the community. This bothered me so much that I even put out a meme about it on Twitter. Do you know how bothered I have to be, Chris, to put out a meme about something? What's going on with Mason Minnie? He was selected here in 27th round, 8th pick. What are we doing here? It's a former top 20 tight end from last year. Going value. This late is pretty crazy. And I can kind of get it if people were, scared off thinking that he's going to be splitting targets with Dorian Thomas. I get that. So why is Dorian Thomas going in round 10? And this isn't just this draft. This is now a consistent thing I've seen over multiple drafts where Dorian Thomas is being drafted very early. I don't know if people think that Mason Minnie is out of eligibility or something like that. But to me, if you're scared of them splitting, you should be drafting both of them late. If you think one of them is going to get enough to be a relevant CFF tight end, why would you not go with the guy who's been in this offense already? Why would you not go with the guy that has already built the chemistry with JKS? I'm just not entirely sure I get what is going on in the CFF community early on with regards to this tight end situation at Cal. Chris, help me out, man. Like, do you understand it? I don't.
I don't. I'm assuming people are projecting Dorian Thomas to take over that kind of, hybrid slot role in this offense. But then again, I have that locked. I have the slot role locked up by Chase Hendricks. I don't think either of them are going to produce what they gave us last year. Even, Dorian Thomas, what he produced last year, where he was at, and Mason Minnie at Cal. So I don't think the Dorian Thomas coming in warrants the Mason Minnie drop off that we're seeing in this draft. but I don't think Mason Mini is good enough to take over fully or be the guy that it inhibits Dorian Thomas's role. I think they're just going to be mediocre going into the year. But I get what you're saying with Mini and the kind of disrespect that he's getting this draft season.
Yeah. Again, I fully understand the argument that they'll cannibalize each other. I can get that,
Yes,
but if that's the case,
that's
then
what I
both of
was
them,
looking for.
if that's the case, then both of them need to be going late. If there's going to be a split between the two of them, it makes more sense in my mind that Mini would go higher. So I just don't understand what's going on.
Yeah. Agreed.
Who's the guy that stands out to you in this range?
Let's go Gio Lopez, quarterback, Wake Forest. What he was able to put up before. Where was he before North Carolina? Was it
South Alabama?
South Alabama. And what he was able to put up production-wise at South Alabama, multiple games in the double-digit fantasy point producing. And then he went to North Carolina where he only averaged 12.78 fantasy points. He had a little bit of injury, bad luck there at North Carolina. But now he's going over to Wake Forest, an assistant that I think will better suit what he does as a quarterback, which is kind of, utilize his feet, utilize his legs. And I think he builds on what he was doing at South Alabama at Wake Forest. So I think it's a great pick, considering, again, QB death and where we're at. Being able to get a potential top 30 quarterback this late in the draft, I think is just tremendous value there.
No, I agree. Again, him reuniting with Robbie Zell as well, who was his offensive coordinator out of South Alabama, it's going to be a much better situation for him than what was going on in North Carolina. Quite frankly, I think Gio I don't want to say he got conned, but I think he was sold a bag of goods. Again, you're a young quarterback, and all of a sudden you're getting offers to go play for Bill Belichick and be Belichick's starting quarterback when all you ever thought you'd be would be the starting quarterback for South Alabama, right? He probably went there. I wouldn't be shocked if it was not long before he realized he had made a mistake. I think that staying Power 4 is good for him. And again, reuniting with a coaching staff with Rob Zell, I think will help him out a lot. I've got him as QB 49. I think this is great value. I think he's a great pick this late. So, I want to highlight Cornell Hatcher here, one of the few running backs taken in the last 2 rounds here. Again, I said before, there's a lot to be said about how much it feels like running back drops off here, and that's still kind of the case here because I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Oregon State's new coaching staff hasn't been a pretty big disaster, or last 2 years hasn't been a big disaster. Now we got a complete unknown coming in with, what's his name, the co-offensive coordinator from Alabama coming in to be the head coach. So we don't know exactly what's going on here. But there's a lot of vacated running back carries with Anthony Hankerson gone, right? Saladin Allah is gone. He's off to Iowa State. They do bring in AJ Newberry from Vanderbilt, but if you look at what he's done the last couple of years, he's not really much to be impressed by. Meanwhile, Cornell Hatcher, there's something to like here, right? Again, 5.7 yards per attempt last year. 3.9 yards after contact per attempt. Breakaway percentage of 30.5, which isn't, bad, but it's not great either. But it's enough for me to say, I think he's pretty solidly in line to be the RB1 for Oregon State again this year. It's just, I don't know if that staff's going to prefer a committee or if they're going to prefer a workhorse. But this late in the draft, I think this is worth a shot. I think this is a really good pick by, who was this? Who made this pick? I should have checked this before I started talking about it. But Chris, while it was
Justin CFF Insiders.
Yeah, Justin Heisey. So good pick, Heisey. I think this is a good late round running back to take a shot on. What are your thoughts, Chris?
Yeah. It's another room that's going to be. I mean, they just lost their top guy, Anthony Hankerson. So, again, you're targeting, potential running back ones on their teams this late in the draft. If you can snatch up a guy like Hatcher with your last pick to round out your running back room, you'll take that every day. So I kind of like that pick there. Another good call.
All right. You got one last guy you want to highlight?
Yeah, let's go Jonte Cook. They're out of Ole Miss. He's just 30.2.
Oh, there he is.
That late in the draft, I think it is great value considering what Ole Miss wide receivers kind of have been able to put up for fantasy purposes coming over from Syracuse. He was highly targeted. We know the talent that Jonte Cook is. Yeah, transferring from Texas to Syracuse, now going over to Ole Miss. They've lost quite a bit of guys, either through the transfer portal or graduating up to the NFL level. He did go over there with Daryl Gill as well. So being able to, again, this late in the draft, being able to pick a guy like Jonte Cook, who could see wide receiver one, at least on his team, workload, that's something that, you want to pinpoint in your drafts. And the drafter was able to do that with Jonte Cook this late. I don't think I've ever seen Jonte Cook go this late yet.
I have to slightly disagree. Again, when you're around 30, you can only say a pick is so bad, but like my projections don't love Jonte Cook, mostly because under John David Baker, the slot wide receiver the last couple of years has averaged 70 targets, and that wouldn't be so bad if Jonte Cook was more efficient with his touches, and he's decently solidly efficient for a slot receiver, but 12.7 yards per catch. My projections would have him at 48 receptions, so that gets you to about 585 yards total. Yep. Again, probably some boom weeks here and there, but for the most part, you want the outside wide receivers when it comes to John David Baker's system, so I'd rather take shots on Deuce Alexander, Daryl Gill, take shots there.
Yep, that's fair point.
One wide receiver though that I think is kind of interesting here, and I gotta give Nate credit on this because he kind of talked me off the ledge a little bit with regard to this, because I kind of poo-pooed on this transfer when we were talking wide receivers. But Javen Nicholas there, 2 picks later, wide receiver out of Duke. I kind of mentioned during that transfer episode where I was like, man, I don't want a wide receiver that's going anywhere where Walker Eagle's going to be the starting quarterback. Like, that could be a disaster. But Nate pointed out, he is a slot wide receiver, and if there's anyone in this country that has been trained to pepper the absolute hell out of a slot wide receiver, it is Walker Eagle because of that Chris Sutzman system over there. That's all they did. Barcade's gone. Keyshawn Brown's gone. Normally, it's the outside guys that do better for Duke the last couple of years, but like I said, that quarterback tendency may not be able to go away. I like Nicholas better than the other wide receiver options, at least on paper right now. 30th round, that's a pretty fun shot at wide receiver, in my opinion.
Yep, agreed.
All righty. Chris, let's finish this up, man. There's nothing else much to say. Again, it's fun doing 30 rounds this early on. Obviously, a lot to take away. We'll have plenty of best balls in the near future. And with those best balls and this draft as well, we will have ADP to you guys sooner rather than later. And with ADP will come some of our other tools that we are very excited about, including my draft predictor tool and maybe some other stuff we got under the hood right now. We'll see how that goes. Chris, got anything to say before we close out?
No, I don't. It's just a sad day over here at the Chris household.
Nah, don't worry. You'll get us in 4 years.
We'll get over it. Yeah, exactly. At least we had that All-Star game. We got the All-Star game.
There you go. All right. With that, everyone, we have come to the end of our show. Appreciate you all for listening. It's been a long one, but I hope you got a lot out of it. If you guys have not already, again, please make sure you leave a like, a comment, and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're on the podcast side of things, make sure you follow the show, leave a 5-star review wherever you can. Make sure you check out the rest of the Campus to Canton podcast network for shows ranging on pretty much anything you can think of related to the college fantasy game. We'll see you guys back here next Monday where, Chris, we're going to start talking about some coaching changes. All right, got a lot of coaches moving around. We talked about the players, but we got to talk about the coaches and what kind of systems are popping up in different places. So until then, really appreciate all of you guys out there, and I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful, and blessed week. See y'all.